With Tavion Thomas's status questionable for Thursday's game, which Utah running back is in for the majority of the carries, and which other Utah Utes are in for big performances versus the Washington State Cougars, we're talking about it on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube. Would love to interact with you guys in the comments on social media, as well as in the YouTube comments as well. I'd also like to thank the title sponsor of today's episode, LinkedIn Jobs. Thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions may apply. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. On today's show, we're going to be going over the running back situation for the Utes heading into this technically a short week. It's Thursday's game as Cole Bagley joins the show with us. Appreciate you stopping by, Cole. And this Utah team is in an interesting position, right? You come off the high of a huge win against the USC Trojans, and you have a bye week, so we haven't really heard much from the team in a while. I spoke to Kyle Whittingham twice, but both times were pretty brief in general and just haven't really gotten much from him. And the biggest thing we haven't gotten a lot from him about is this whole Tavion Thomas situation. And he's been tweeting a lot of cryptic things. There was a video of him, as we talked about on the show last week, of him leaving the field right as just the final whistle, final buzzer, whatever you want to call it. The clock hit 0 against USC. His pads were already off as well. And you just heard Coach Whittingham just kind of continue to say no comment about his status for this upcoming game as well, and mention the continued cryptic tweet. So at the moment, I would be very surprised if Tavion Thomas plays in this Thursday's game. We'll wait and see. We're not inside the locker room. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's our job to cover all the bases. And for this Utah team, I do think, even though we've been heard about, like, he's been dealing with some injury stuff, and we talked about the cramping stuff early on in the year as well. I think when you're talking about a guy in Micah Bernard, I do feel like he's the first guy that came out of Coach Witt's mouth when he was asked about the running back room the Monday after the USC game. I feel like Micah's in for majority of the carries. And in fact, if we're going to divvy this up in percentage wise, I think Micah Bernard is going to get, I'll go 6. I'm not good at math as well. So Cole, you got to keep track if I miss up the percentages of this year, but I think Micah is going to get, I'll go 60% of the carries will go for Micah. I think about 30 of them will go to Jaylon GLover. And I think we'll see 1 or 2 for Jaquindon Jackson. And I think that is how the running back workload is going to shake out in this Thursday's game. Because at the moment, as I said, I just don't see Tavion playing based on what's been going on and the couple of quotes we have gotten. Because simply put, if everything was fine, Coach Witt doesn't say no comment about a lot of these issues involving the running back room and Tavion.
Yeah, things are still weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel bad for the guy. He's had,
Yes,
some tough personal stuff going on. I
all the
believe
best of luck for him with everything he's going on,
yeah,
losing his aunt, all of that 100%.
yeah. This, some media people like to see, these guys fail when they're going, regardless of what they're going through, and that's not. I don't like to be that way. I
It's
wish him the
not us
best.
at
I hope
all.
that he's
It's not at
yeah.
all.
I hope he's doing well, and I hope he's overcoming the difficult trials.
I hope he's out there Thursday. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's still a ball game to be played, and
Mhm.
I agree with you. From things that I've heard, and just kind of my expectations is we might see something similar to the Arizona State situation. Where somebody else comes out and starts,
Yeah.
gets majority of carries. Maybe Tavion gets a few, but I'm with you. I'd be surprised if we see a whole lot, if any, from Tavion on Thursday. Just things are weird, and the whole USC situation, and yeah, some of those cryptic tweets that he was putting out. I think Saturday or Sunday, he tweeted a whole bunch of things in a row. Just talking about overcoming things and staying the course, and that kind of stuff. So, as far as I know, he's still with the program and whatnot. But I think
Yeah.
there's still some some things, some disciplinary actions that are being carried out. And I don't expect to see much of Tavion on Thursday. It's just too bad because
Yeah.
we all know how good of a back he is and how
I know.
experienced he is and how much trouble he can cause for opposing
Yes.
defenses. But yeah, I think we'll see a good amount from Mekhi. From what I know, we're going to see quite a bit of Jaylon GLover. I might even go 50-40-10.
Okay, I like that.
And I think the situations that we see Mekhi in the field, it's going to be, some more pass opportunities. But yeah, I'll go maybe 50-40. Mekhi, Jalen, and then yeah, I think we'll see JJ get a few. And that's all if everything goes according to plan, right? I mean, we
Yes.
know that this offense goes with the guy that's playing well, and let's say Jalen comes out and has a great game, those he'll start to see more carries, or if Mekhi comes out and does the same thing, or heck, if
Just like he
Quinn
did
comes
against
out,
USC.
right. So that's my I'd say I'm about on the same page as far as expectations with you, and hopefully they get it together. Not that not that it's like, oh man, the running backs are having a disaster season, but it's
100%.
it's pretty well below the bar that, Utah fans have come to expect out of the backfield.
Well, coming into the year, the whole talk was we just need to add that explosive element and then we're a complete offense. And last week you see the explosive element, but then the running game isn't really much of a threat as well. So that's what's disappointing is you want to try and be a complete offense. And this Utah team has proven they can win if they can establish the run. They did it against the 7th ranked team in the country, but it's a lot harder to
Right.
do that as well on the road, I'll say. So I think that's why we're all hoping that they can do that and establish the run going forward. And another huge factor of Utah's running game, of course, will be Cam Rising, who's been absolutely phenomenal running the football this season. Every short yardage situation of recent, they have turned to Cam to get it done because it's so nice to have basically just that running back be an extra blocker and Cam be able to fight and get those extra yards because he is so hard to bring down. He never gets dragged down for a
For
negative.
whatever reason, I don't know why
I
he's
know.
so hard to
I
to
know.
get to. He's not wicked fast. He's
We
not
stand next to him
super
as well. He's
elusive.
not like a physical freak.
Right. Like, he's not Cam Newton,
Yeah.
right? But
Oh, no.
but but for whatever reason, the dude can move the chains and
Yeah.
score touchdowns with his feet, and he showed it week in and week out. So yeah, it's you love to see it. I can't quite figure it out, but I'm
Yeah.
just glad it's happening.
No, he's definitely one of those deceptively strong guys as well, because you see him go on the field. I think you walk into the weight room, like let's say you're at LA Fitness or something like that. You walk in and you look at Cam Rising, and you're not like that intimidated by him at the gym. But then all of a sudden you see him, all those 45s he's throwing on the leg press machine, and you're like, okay, Cam, that's the kind of guy I feel like Cam Rising is as well. And I feel like his teammates would agree with that too. And you brought up a really interesting point as well. Just talk about how this Utah team rides the hot hand because we saw that last week with Micah Bernard, and maybe that will be Micah Bernard again this week as well. As we talked about as well, struggled with some of the cramping things too. So it's just going to be interesting to see. And just in general, Coach Whittingham on Monday was very coy about the entirety of his running back room. So I am just really curious how this is all going to shake out. But the guy I'm most interested in talking about when it comes to this running back room right now is a guy you're very familiar with, and Jaylon GLover. Jalen against Air, we saw against Florida didn't get any carries as well, but then Southern Utah had a really good game as well. That's had a couple other nice performances as well. Against Arizona State as well. I still thought he played well. I thought there were just a couple times he missed holes. I mean, he's only a freshman trying to start for a team that's
Right.
trying to compete for a Pac-12 championship. That's incredibly difficult. But you still see the flashes and the moments and the plays that
Mhm.
just make him what a lot of people think he's the future of this Utah offense. I'm included in that as well. I think he's going to be an incredible back with the bye week under his belt. I think he's in for a really good game, as you talked about as well. I think this is going to be a chance for him to have 100 yards rushing potentially, depending on how this Utah running game goes. Or I'll say even this, maybe not even 100 yards rushing, but a couple really memorable runs that have Utah at the end of the season when they're cutting up the Jaylon GLover highlight film. The very first plays we could see, I really think could start with this Washington State game.
Yeah, I I love watching Jalen play.
Mhm.
Um, I think he's done a fantastic job with the reps he's been given. Has it been overly flashy? No. Has it been,
Mhm.
big chunks? No. But he's been so close so many times. There's several plays, there's a couple against SU, there's a couple against Arizona State where, if he just gets past one more defender, or, if he has an extra step, or he's so close to getting to that point where he's going to be really tough to track down. And the fact that he's only a freshman is great. I feel like some people are just holding him to this standard, like he's almost as if he's a
A
sophomore,
true
or
freshman.
if
He's
he's
not like a Van Fillinger or
like
a Junior Tafuna, like redshirt at least for
exactly
the year. True freshman.
right. Like, this is a kid that just
Yes.
got to the college level, and he has, in my opinion, he has exceeded expectations, and his time is coming. And yeah, I hope to see some awesome flashes from him um, on Thursday, and I think the opportunity is going to be there. Like I said, I think I would be surprised if we see 30%, but I think it's going to be somewhere between that 30-40% of the carries, especially with just how they utilize Mackay. Um, Yeah, I'm excited to see what Jalen can do. And, guys, he just needs a little more time.
Mhm.
He just needs to continue learning the offense, acclimating to the college level. He's close. What? Pay close attention to him on Thursday, and you will see glimpses of greatness, and you will see just how close he is to just being an absolutely relentless running back who's going to tear it up, moving forward.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that there's so many NFL guys I think of that when their first year of college, looking ahead to the NFL draft, we didn't have them in like the first round conversation. And the reason for that is for, let's say, I go back to a guy like Quinnen Williams, who's really tearing up with the New York Jets this season. He was a guy his first year with Alabama. I believe he redshirted or just wasn't even really a factor his first 2 seasons. Then he explodes
Mhm.
on the scene the third years. What changed? He was in the program, in the system, developed, got better, got bigger, got stronger. I think that's what's going to happen with Jaylon GLover. All those things. You're just going to see his game continue to grow and get better. There's a reason guys like Clark Phillips, Derek Stingley Jr. is a guy who's also like burst down the scene. Kayvon Thibodeau, like those guys are so incredibly rare as well. And I'll even throw in Thibodeau. He didn't come on till the end of the season, really, which is something Jalen still has a chance to do as well. So you got to stay patient with these guys. And you always see those freshmen make those big strides as the season goes along. So you got to be excited about this Utah team. And I'm excited to see what this running back room can do. But we're going to talk about what other players on offense really have a chance to break out in a moment. But first, I want to talk to you guys about LinkedIn Talent Solutions. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have the access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Go add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Guys, I use LinkedIn all the time to be able to network with friends as well as getting potential connections as well, trying to network and just find those different business opportunities. LinkedIn is one of the largest job network sites you will find. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Also, with LinkedIn Jobs, they help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions may apply. There's a reason no lender helps more families in Utah with their mortgage needs. Intercap gets deals done. Quick and simple process. Intercap closes loans 2 weeks faster than the industry average. And though fast is great, the ultimate goal is to create a stress-free home loan process. And that is what Locked On's personal loan officer, Steve Carter, has delivered to hundreds of Locked On listeners so far, including Locked On's founder, David Locke. And let's be honest, if Steve can help keep David on track through the entire process, Steve can help anyone. And though Intercap is new to the Locked On Utes podcast, it's been assisting customers with all their mortgage needs since 1978. That is 43 years of experience, and Steve Carter has been providing Locked On listeners with the best experience since 2018. Intercap is headquartered here in Utah, but licensed to help with all your mortgage needs in 40 states. Give Steve a call. His direct number is 385-800-8528. You will not find a more responsive loan officer. NMLS number is 190465. So give Steve a call or visit www.intercaplending.com. So make sure you guys head over and check out Steve. He'll do a great job assisting you and getting you guys set up. When we're talking about this Utah offense and who else I think is in for a big performance, I know it's boring, but I think Cam Rising is going to continue to ball out against this Washington State defense. And I know this Washington State defense does some really nice things as well. And I'm going to talk about the offensive line in a little bit too, because I think they're a group I'm really excited to see as well, as this is a Cougars team that comes into this game with 20 sacks on the season. We saw how well they did against USC. There's still a little uncertainty there at the guard spot, but either way, I just think when we look at what happened with Cam against USC, I just really think things are only just going to continue to go up and continue to be that level of play. I think the offense trusts him, and I think Andy Ludwig trusts him to open up the offense. It's getting more creative right now. I think they're back to having fun, spreading the ball out. Guys like Money Parks are going to continue to pop. Jalen Dixon's going to continue to make plays, and of course, Dalton's going to continue to feast, as will Devon Vele. Also expect to see Solomon Enos get a little more involved in this offense as well. But as we're talking about just a big game in general, I think Cam is in for a monster one, and I think the specific guys will once again be Devon and Dalton, with the other guys kind of sprinkled in and doing some nice things, catches, passes on the outside. I do expect this Utah team to throw the ball in this game still more than they run it. I would love to be pleasantly surprised, but I think they trust Cam the most right now, and I definitely trust Cam to be able to step up and deliver those big-time throws. And I'm hoping this is one of those games where it was a lot like last year. Cam played great, and it wasn't close late. I'd rather it not be a situation like it was versus USC where Cam played great and needed to continue to play great every single drive for Utah to still have a chance to even be in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Cam's going to get his, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's what we expect from him. That's where he's at. That's the type of quarterback he is. Every single week, Rising is going to get his. is. He's going to go for, probably around 250, 300 plus. I mean, that's just the type of player that he is at this point in his collegiate career. Especially against this Washington State defense, who's allowing almost 1,000 more yards through the air than they are on the ground. So even if the running backs have a decent day, I still expect Utah to keep passing the football, because not only is it working against everybody else, but that's, I wouldn't say the Achilles heel of the Cougar defense, but when you're giving up almost twice as many yards through the air as you are on the ground, you're going to exploit that. It's at this point in the season, it's pretty obvious to how teams are going to go after other teams. It will be interesting to see, though, how does Washington State defend Dalton Kincaid?
Yeah.
Because they just learned from USC. That's a dude that is going to go super high off the draft board next year in the NFL draft. And, if you're not paying attention to him, he can easily go for 150 plus. I mean, he did like 234 yards against the Trojans.
Sounds like
that's ridiculous.
all I know is he's Easton.
I still think Dalton's going to get maybe 60 to 100 yards, maybe a touchdown. I don't think we're going to see the production that we saw against USC, just because I think he's, if you're circling targets, you realize, okay, Utah's going to come in here and pass. Dalton Kincaid is circled as big as possible with about 15 circles, going around with that Sharpie. Like, you are going to do everything you can to stop him. And so for me, I think the wide receivers are going to have a lot more opportunities. I hope to see Devon Vele go for 100 yards plus. And
I know, that'd be awesome.
I want to see, Solomon Enos get 50 plus yards. Maybe Money Parks gets 2 to 3 receptions. Maybe we see a little bit more from Makai Cope. So for me, I think I expect a lot of opportunity for the receivers going in this week. Dalton he's going to get still, I think a decent amount, but he's establishes himself as the most dangerous target. That Washington State's going to do everything they can to shut him down. So that leaves a whole bunch of wide receivers open. And maybe we see some more from some of the guys outside of Devon. Maybe we see more from JD and Makai and Money, because Washington State probably isn't game planning for them as much. So for me, I think the wide receivers are going to have a ton of opportunity, and if they can deliver, I think Utah, walks away with a W.
I totally agree, and I think one other essential element for this Utah team to walk away with the W is the performance of the O block. And as I mentioned, a lot of positive last week versus USC, but at the same time, there were a number of times where Cam still had to make a throw under duress. Also, a lot of times you face 2nd and 9, 3rd and 7, because you're struggling to run the ball. And as it pertains to this game this week, I think we will continue to see steps in the right direction, but I don't think we'll be coming away from it being like blown away by the running game production. As I mentioned, I think there's a chance we are, but I just feel like we're going to continue to see some of those missed assignments, and some of those things will continue to pop up. And the biggest reason for that being is this is a talented Washington State front 7. So I think they're going to make some plays. I also think Cam gets dropped at least once this game. I think it's a little different than the USC game, where I think it's not as on his mind. Like, it's not, look, I mentioned this is a really good Cougars pass rush. They don't lead the country in sacks coming in as the Trojans did. So I think maybe it'll be one of those situations where Cam thinks he has a little bit more time than he does, tries to make a play, and ends up getting dropped. But I don't think it's going to be a theme where all game long he's running for his life. I just think we're going to see a sack breakthrough. And even in protection, I think overall there's a chance they could be even better than they were against SC, just giving up a sack, because sacks can be such a fluky stat. That's why Brian Brown always comes on this show and talks so much about pressures in this one. So I expect a positive step in the right direction from the O block with, like I said, I think some of the running backs will have still really good games, but I don't think we'll be talking about after this, like, man, that 2021 Utah running game is back. That won't be the story, but we'll be encouraged.
Yeah. I mean, I just see eye to eye with you on this one. I think it's pretty easy to see, or predict, what we're going to see on Thursday. And I do think, I agree. I think maybe Cam gets dropped a time or two. I think the linebacker situation in Washington State is better than at USC, and I think that's what we're going to see. That's what we're going to see. I think they're going to bring those guys on some blitzes, and I think we're going to see Cam dropped by the linebackers. I'm not I'm not overly impressed with their defensive line, but the linebackers, I think they might have one of the best guys in the conference.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's where the O line's got to make the emphasis is and if the running backs drop back to block, mark those linebackers.
Yeah.
On the flip side, Utah defensively, it'll be interesting to see what happens. To
Mhm.
me, I think we know the identity of this defense, and I think they're just okay. Um, a lot of young guys, a lot of first-year starters, especially across the front seven, and that makes it tough. I mean, we saw against USC, Caleb Williams had all day long to throw in that first half. They had to bring 6 and 7 guys in the second half, and we're just betting on the secondary, who is more experienced in getting stops and denying big pass plays, like we saw on that final drive. So to me, I think we're going to see that again because Washington State's offense is very similar. A lot of the guys the other day were comparing Ward to Caleb Williams, and
Mhm. Yeah.
they pass a lot. I think they're almost at I think they've got almost 2,000 yards. 1,962 yards offensively through the air. So I think you're going to see a similar scheme against the Cougars as we did against the Trojans, where Utah just bets on their secondary. They bring up a couple extra guys to pressure Ward, and secondary is going to need to step up. RJ Hubert probably in for another big game.
Yeah.
Clark Phillips. I don't know if we're going to see another pick six, but I wouldn't
Mhm.
be surprised if we see another interception. And I'd like to see some more from Cole Bishop.
Yeah.
Not that I think he's been bad, but I think he's just been in a tough
He's missed some
situation.
tackles.
Yeah, I was really impressed through the first few games.
Yep.
I think teams have just plain simple been avoiding him
True.
just because of explosive he is. So, but to me, if Utah's going to win this game, if they're going to have success defensively, I think we see a similar scheme that we did from 10 days ago.
I totally agree. And also, before I jump into the defensive side, when you talk about Henley as well as Mugoa, I mean, those guys on the season, just talk about that sack production and what they've done. I mean, Henley is so 60 tackles on the season, and Mugoa as well, 33. But when you combine those guys also in their sack production, that's 6.5 sacks between two linebackers. Those are the kind of Devin Lloyd type numbers we saw last season as well. So, their linebackers can get after it. And it's a big thing for this Utah offensive line that struggled to reach the second level. I'm going to talk about the defenders that I think are in for a big game in a moment. But first, I want to tell you guys about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for betting football and the start for betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis every game. As always, BetOnline always has you guys covered for the biggest games each week. You guys know when BetOnline as well, you have an opportunity to cash in on, and as mentioned, NBA, MLB playoffs, of course, also underway, and of course, college football, NFL. It's so great every Saturday and Sunday just to be able to sit back and why not get a little bit more invested in the action and head over to betonline.com. At BetOnline, where the game starts. So, Cole, coming back into this one for Utah. You just talked about the defenders. You think we're in for a big game as well. I don't think this is the game we see the defensive line fixed. I think we'll see similar to the offensive line. I think at least we'll see a couple pressures this game where we're like encouraged once again, steps in the right direction, because that's what happens with young units as the season wears on. It's why guys like Junior Tafuna and Van Fillinger a year ago played their best football in November and then kind of in those December games as well, is because they got so much better as the year goes on. I think that applies for guys like Connor O'Toole, even guys like Vanden Jr. again, who have kind of been a little bit short of expectations. I know I personally was a little too high on their sack production this year, but I do expect those guys to have better games this time around. I think the linebackers also, once again, take some steps in the right direction, but Utah will still probably give up a couple big runs because Diabate is going to over pursue a time or two as well, or just someone missing a tackle. So it's going to be interesting to see. But the big thing we've been talking about is Cam Ward versus this Utah secondary. It's a matchup I think this Utah secondary is going to win. And you talked about Cole Bishop. One guy I think is going to get his first interception of the season is JT Broughton. I think when you look at JT Broughton, he's been playing a good coverage in a lot of situations, and he's been beat a couple times, but also against teams like USC. I mean, it is so hard to hold up on the back end when you have 8 seconds. Like, just trying to react and keep moving when a receiver goes off plays and just keep track of him every single time. It just gets so difficult the longer a play goes on. And I think that's what guys like Broughton, Phillips, all these dudes on the back end, Hubert, ended up facing. So I think Broughton's going to come away with one. Of course, I wouldn't be surprised for Clark to come away with one. We know what he is. He's absolutely incredible, phenomenal, all the words you want to use as well. And yeah, Cole or RJ getting one also would be really nice touch as well. I do think the defense will make some nice plays in this one. They're not going to give up as many points as they gave to the Trojans as well. And I do think they'll be able to hold this Washington State team under 20. Now, do they get to 28 even late in the game? Potentially, but I don't see them going over 30 in this one. And how do you see that, Cole?
Yeah, if you look at the points per game that they've both posted and allowed, Washington State's posting roughly 24 points per game and allowing 20. So for me, the magic number is if Utah can get up to about 28, 30 points, they're going to win this football game. I don't think that Washington State is, they're not as good as USC. So
No.
I don't think you're going to see the shootout that's, up in the 40s. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we see a 35-25, 35-24 situation football game, 35-21, something like that would be my expectation. And, something that kind of came to mind as you were talking about the defensive line really quick. And then one thing on the secondary is I think, obviously Devin Lloyd and Nephi Sewell are guys that you miss a lot, but I think
For sure.
specifically for the defensive line, Hawati Pututau and Mika Tafua,
That's a good point.
just so much veteran knowledge and leadership that made it easier for guys like Junior and Van to do their jobs. Whereas this year, those guys are replaced by first-year starters in Jonah Ellis, Connor O'Toole, Miki Suguturaga. For me, it's frustrating to not see Gabe Reed in there more. That guy, I think he's been the best defensive lineman, all season long for whatever reason. He's getting a lot of reps, but I'm like, why are you not starting this guy? And maybe there's strategy to it. There's things I don't know about, but
I definitely agree.
To me, Gabe has been the best, and he has that veteran. So, anyways, that's kind of why I feel like the defensive line struggled. Is you lost a lot of veteran leadership, you lost the veteran linebackers behind you, and that plays an impact. It's a lot of first year starters, even though they're sophomores. Jonah Ellis wasn't starting a year ago. Connor O'Toole wasn't starting a year ago. Miki Suguturaga wasn't starting a year ago. So that makes a pretty big impact. Going back to the secondary, I don't know if it's necessarily going to happen against Washington State, but I think very soon we're going to see an interception by Zemiah Vaughn. This dude, he is exactly as advertised.
One of the low-key MVPs against Oregon State for a couple of the plays he made, chasing down that long touchdown and then the deflection zone as well.
I think last week against USC, I can't remember if it was the second to last USC, the third to last USC drive where they didn't score, they punted, or the last one, but he had a pretty big stop and he just kind of posed. And he's as advertised. People have said, this guy's on the team, we're talking him up all, fall camp. He's a dark horse. People he's going to produce and people aren't going to know who he is and he's going to make stops. And I'm really excited for the future. I think he's just a sophomore. I could be wrong, but he's great. And I think one of these games down the stretch here, we're going to see an interception because it might be on Thursday, because he's still kind of under the radar guy. Just like Dalton Kincaid is signed 15 times in red Sharpie, Clark Phillips is signed 15 times in red Sharpie on defense. And RJ Huber is as well. And so, I would like to say maybe we get a Broughton or a Vaughn pick this week, just because Cam Ward might try to attack, that side of the field.
I think it's something all Utah fans would love to see. Cole, something Utah fans would also love to see is a win. And as it pertains, I'm going to hold off on my prediction until tomorrow's show, but what is your final prediction for this one? Are the Utes going to get a win? That's a long pause, by the way.
It's just so tough, there's so many factors. I think Washington State's underrated. I think they're a good team. To me, they're like the dark.
Not as good as they were going to be. We thought they were going to be, but to still go into Camp Randall and win is incredibly hard. If you guys have never been to that environment before, which I'll be honest, I haven't been since I was 3 years old, so it's not like I remember it, but you guys should definitely go and check a game out there sometime. An incredibly hard place to create, and all the credit in the world to the Cougars for getting that done. So definitely agree.
There's a lot of factors. Both teams are coming off a bye week. Utah's coming off a big emotional victory over USC. It is in Pullman. Washington State would love nothing more than to beat Utah. This would, outside of beating Washington, this might be, if they were to beat Utah, that would be the second biggest victory.
Monumental.
So just because they've been so close so many times over the last few years. This game has been, they in 2020 it was what, 38-7, something crazy like that, and then
Yeah,
Utah, scores like 38 unanswered or something
I know. Yeah,
crazy. And last year it's comes down to the last drive, and Clark Phillips gets a pick six to seal it. So I think it's going to be very close. I'm calling one possession, um, maybe two. I think
okay.
it's going to be. I think it's going to be tight. Like I said, I think 35, 35-24, 35-27, somewhere in that range. And because I think Washington State wants this one, and not that they're a dark horse contender to win the pack, but to me they're kind of the dark
Yeah,
horse team of the conference. This is to me,
yeah.
this is the
They
team.
should have beat
This is
Oregon.
right. They should have beat Oregon. They were close with USC. Like this is the team that you don't want to face on your schedule. Not because they're going to win the conference, but because this could be the trap game that you drop.
Exactly.
Uh, like I want to say that Utah's going to win, but I'm not 100% confident. Like I think it can go either way. I think it's going to be
Okay.
a one. That's what I'm going to say. It can go either way, and to me, it's a 7 to 10 point game. I'll leave it at that.
I love that's where the line is as well as this game is at 7 evenly as well. So, hey, Cole's really intrigued by it. Make sure you guys tune in for the game on Thursday. It's going to be incredible. Also, make sure you check out Locked On Utes tomorrow. I'll give my game prediction and break down a couple more of the exciting aspects of this game as well. Make sure you guys head over to @BagleyCole_. Give him a follow on Twitter, as well as check out all the great content he has coming out at FanNation AllUtes. Cole, always appreciate you joining us, my friend. Also, if you guys are in the market for a second listen every day, we want to thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen, of course. But for your next listen, go check out the Locked On Sports Podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions from the biggest games, recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes, but we'll see you tomorrow.